Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Guys on Sports. We are here. It was a terrible, terrible hate watch Sunday. Everything I wanted to happen did not happen, except I did hit some
parlays,
friendly wagers.
Yeah.
But just a terrible Sunday. A bunch to talk about there. This episode, we're going to be covering wide receivers, draft strategy, just some stuff to pick out there. These guys are going to give us two wide receivers that they think can move into wide receiver one category this year, and one wide receiver one from this season that could potentially fall out. A lot to look forward to if you like it. At the end of this video, I'm going to link the running back episode. You can go back and watch that. And it's a little series we're doing leading up to some of our draft prognostication, and we'll get into that. So we got a lot of stuff in store for you in the offseason. But before we get to any of that stuff, we want to talk playoffs. We want to talk Super Bowl. Just like last week, I got two questions for you guys. I'm going to say the question. We'll go to Mark first, and I'm just going to lay out and let you guys answer, okay? So the first question is, talking about Championship Sunday and what happened afterwards, on a scale of 1 to 10, how interested are you in this Super Bowl matchup and why?
It's a great question. I would say it's probably middle of the pack. So my daughter has a volleyball tournament that weekend, and let's just say if her championship game runs into this championship game, I'm not really going to care. It's probably about a 4 or 5 for me. As we well know, I'm a storied Eagles hater.
Yeah.
For good reason.
Me too.
And I really think, I didn't want to believe the whole ref scandal stuff with Kansas City, but I really honestly feel like the Bills were robbed in that game. That was a blatant first down quarterback rush by Josh Allen. They show where the ball was
a good field goal.
Half yard beyond the sticks. And still moving with time. They could have just flat out won that game.
Yeah, but at the very least, it's a chip shot field goal.
Yeah. And
a 2-score game.
There was a couple of egregious holding penalties that were not called, and there were a couple of fouls on Buffalo that were also a little ticky tacky.
Yeah.
With that being said, do I think the refs are cheating? No, I don't think they're cheating. I think if anything, they're probably more aware that there's more eyes on them, so they're really trying to get it right. I just think there were some missed opportunities, and I don't like that the Bills aren't in the Super Bowl. Let's just put it that way.
Before you go, Rock, I do want to mention one thing that you didn't mention. I did also notice that, two things, and I want you to react to this too because I'm just teeing you up here. But the down before that, I'm not sure, was it Dalton Kincaid or Dawson Knox? He made the line of gain as well. If you watch the replay where it looks, I guess the refs were assuming his knee was down, he extends, his knees are not down. I'll see if I could patch that in below here and we don't get taken down. But he clearly reaches the line again. And then leaning into the conspiracy of it all, on that 4th down, almost catch by Dalton Kincaid, there was a flag thrown on that play.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was picked up.
Yes.
And people have gone to the theory of they threw it just in case he made the catch.
Well, and honestly, looking back at the replay, at first I thought Josh was just throwing the ball up.
Yeah.
But he was throwing it in a direction Kincaid should have had it.
He could have caught that.
Yeah, he could have caught it. And I think you're right. They were saying there's a flag on the play, and I was thinking,
well, what is it?
Quite possibly maybe
defensive interference, right?
Right. Thought that. Maybe thought roughing the passer. Wasn't sure, but I was looking at it, and then there's no foul.
All right, so same question to you.
It's a printer.
Yeah. Same question to you.
I wanted to say something else.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, speaking of that play, what was crazy is watching it in real time.
Yes.
You hear the announcer say, flag on the play. Mm-hmm. On the television screen, right? Now, mind you, they cut away to separate footage, right? There's no visual of a flag anywhere, and they didn't even highlight flag. Whenever there's a flag on the field, they're always quick to put flag up.
But then it went away really quick. Yeah,
I didn't even see that.
No,
it popped up.
Yeah, no, they popped up. It
Not
said
very long
flag,
ago.
and I was like, okay, this is getting good.
Yeah,
because I thought, automatic first down. It's either defensive pass interference or it's roughing the passer. Perfect.
And you may or may not have heard somebody scream from the back, somebody shut that guy up, when they were talking about Tony Romo. So I think You know?
All right, so Rocky, your turn.
Conspiracy's real.
Scale of 1 to 10. How interested and why?
I mean, I could care less.
I
And
mean, you couldn't care less.
yeah, I couldn't care less. Like I would say it's probably a 4. I'm most excited about the commercials, which have sucked in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I hate the Eagles.
Yeah.
And
Fiery.
I'm beginning to dislike the Chiefs. I like Andy Reid. I think he's a great coach. I like Spagnuolo. I think he's got a phenomenal defensive. Like I thought that rush, where he rushed from on that last pass, awesome. Nobody expected a corner rush, blitz.
They should have.
I love the coaching staff. I hate, and I do believe we're at the point now where it has to be cheap. It has to, like, they want Kansas City to repeat.
You know what? Now that I'm thinking of it too, there was another situation. So that it was a phenomenal rushing touchdown by Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce runs into the end zone ahead of Patrick Mahomes and starts taunting Damar Hamlin to his face.
The guy died for football.
Yeah.
And he's taunting him. What
All right,
the?
He's taunting him.
We got another question,
not a single
guys.
flag.
Here's what I'll say and my final thoughts on it. I agree with everything you guys both said, but the reason I really don't favor KC is there's a viral little clip going around, and it shows you the interaction the last time Josh Allen beat Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, you sent it to me.
And when he gets up to Josh Allen, he's complaining about the call.
Yeah, worst call I'd ever seen.
And they show Josh Allen, after losing for the 4th time in the playoffs to Patrick Mahomes, handle it with class like a gentleman. And to me, that's the biggest thing and the divide why I love Josh Allen and I don't like Mahomes.
Well, and the crazy thing is, like, if it was Buffalo Eagles, I'd watch it, be excited for it, just because I would hope the Buffalo Bills win for the first time and they beat the Eagles. If it was Washington, Buffalo, I'm good. Man, I am tired of the Eagles. And I've never seen a team who I think isn't that good win this way.
What I will say in the Eagles defense, this is the most likable team ever for me for Philadelphia. And there's one reason why, and it's Saquon. That guy is an absolute class act. His interviews, both pre and post game, he says all the right things. Yeah. But on top of that, if you watch his mannerisms, he believes it. Yeah. And the productivity on the field shows.
He's having fun playing.
That viral run of the backwards leap, hands down, top 3 greatest runs in NFL history.
It is something special. Moving on, because that hurts. Touching on what we just talked about, that play. Is it time, and we'll let Rocky answer this first, sorry. Is it time for technology-assisted ball spotting?
Oh, 100%.
There's a lot of people don't want to take the chain gang out of the game. It is like a part of the game. Similar to baseball where they want to go to the strike zone, the robot strike zone, and the umpires are part of the game. And I do think there's a nice nostalgic piece of that, but I think you can't keep having these big spots, especially when we could get it right. So expound on that.
Listen, it's AI's here. I just used it to write something today. It's time. And
love letter.
It was a love letter. Yeah. You should get it in a couple days.
Oh, thank you.
Anyways, no, it's time. Like, to me, I can visually see that Josh Allen got the first down. I don't know how they couldn't.
Even with replay.
One of them did.
Yeah, but it's a moot point. Like, it should be automatic. And honestly, I think that the chain gang, good for the time, but I'd rather have those SOBs looking for penalties. To be honest, I think their focus should be looking for, because, and this is coming a little bit from college football, Ohio State. These guys were held almost every play, their D-line. I think there's a lot more that goes, and I think it changes. This is $1 million game. Like that, that probably cost players on the Buffalo Bills pretty big incentives. It cost the team.
Absolutely.
It's just time.
It could cost people their jobs.
Yeah, just time.
I'll pound the desk for competition, and I'm a competitive realist in the fact that it's about the hard work and effort you put in practice that translates to the game that should not be taken away by subjective calls. If we have the technology out there to justifiably, I should say, give us the correct call 100% of the time, why not use it, man? Because then the best team does win.
Yep.
We don't leave it to an umpire, who was it? Angel Rodriguez, who is famous. Angel Hernandez, who is infamous for calling, balls out of the strike zone by a foot on very crucial calls.
Yeah.
That takes it out of the game. I pitched when I was younger, up into my early 20s, and
Humble flex.
what I would say is that
Reg League champion.
one thing that always irked me was that the strike zone was at the discretion of the umpire.
Yeah, I will say, to your point, just to kind of put a bow on it, those things are they're things when you grow up watching these games and them being part of your life. They're quirks, they're parts of the game, and there is something to be said for them. It's not like they're just nothing. Like, just the Hernandez thing in itself is a cool little quirk about baseball if you know the game, right? But I do agree that if the technology's there, we have to move there. I think the chain gang can still be part of the game. Have the guys up there and stand there with the chains. But when we need a measurement, you break out the big guns and you beep the little chip in the ball and see where the hell it's at exactly, right? If we could find submarines from space with satellites, we can't place the ball on a football field in a game that's generating billions of dollars. Doesn't make sense. I think you got to clean it up, especially with all the money on the line in the sports books outside of the game.
And I don't think, if you're the Bills, you left something on the field. In other words, they didn't have the greatest game plan.
No.
But you walk away from that game and you don't feel like you got beat. The difference between the Eagles clearly beat the Commanders.
Clearly.
Yeah.
So to me,
fumbles.
that would be a hard game to swallow. It'd be a hard game for Josh Allen. And he's got to hate Kincaid just a little bit.
Nah, I mean,
Just a little
I think
bit.
he hates him as much as Lamar hates Mark.
You hate Mark Andrews more than Kincaid.
You know what? Mark Andrews is a hateable guy, so I'm okay with that. So.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so we'll move on. We got the Pro Bowl games here in Orlando. I don't know if you guys are going to check it out. When they were doing the full-fledged thing, I took the kids out to it. It was pretty cool. They used to have the flag football championships out there. They had a Madden set up. It was a really cool thing for the kids at Wide World of Sports. I don't know if they're doing that this year. I'm going to look into that. Super Bowl in 2 weeks. We'll talk more about that next week. We'll do a little section on the Super Bowl, try to break that down. In the meantime, I want you guys to go to the socials at GOM Podcast on YouTube, on TikTok, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a follow, comment. We got a lot of clips up there. Mark giving hot takes, Rocky giving hot takes. Become part of the conversation. Get involved. We're on there. We'll argue with you. And just give us a follow. I can't stop burping because of this damn soda.
Hot takes. I'm dropping hot cakes on all my haters on there too.
Yeah, so please, we need the help. We need the following. We're trying to make this work. We've been at it for a few years. And we want to continue giving you guys good content and helping you win your leagues. Okay, so from there, we're going to move on. We're moving on to our draft strategy for wide receivers. Last week, we talked about running backs. This week, we're talking about wide receivers. And we're going to start right where we started last week with running backs. We're talking redraft. We're talking 12-man league, PPR. When we're going into that draft, you have Saquon Barkley on the board. You have your Kyron Williams. You have Jahmyr Gibbs. Are you targeting wide receiver first? And how does it change based on where you are in that first round? Last week you started. We'll start with you this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to, again, when we talked about this some last week, I think if I'm 1 to 5, I am probably I'm picking the running back that I want. There's a scarcity of running backs, and I think in the top 5 picks, maybe top 6 picks, I'm getting one of the ones that I think is an every week starter. Somebody like a Saquon, CMC when he was healthy, that kind of back. And I'm probably waiting because I think there's enough receivers that'll still be there in the last later part of the second round.
So I have something to throw in there then because I think there's a middle gray area there, right? So let's say you got Chase off the board. You got Justin Jefferson off the board. CD Lamb is still on the board. Saquon's gone, and maybe you have who we put there, maybe Gibbs or Henry. You're at pick 6. Where are you going there?
Yeah, I'm still, honestly, if I'm at 6 and I got Gibbs or a possibility of Derrick Henry, I'm probably still going running back. I like CD. I love Jefferson. I like Chase, but I don't hate Amon, and I think he's probably every bit as good. And I think that we're going to probably talk about a couple receivers that I think are going to jet up. So I don't know. I just like there are a lot of people won their fantasy league on Saquon this year.
For sure. And then
open and shut.
Just to pitch this to you, are you like, I don't know, if you get your wide receiver early there, maybe the back's not there for you. Are you doubling down on wide receiver to strengthen it? Or are you trying to balance and grab like a lower end RB1 in the second round?
At that point, I think you have to. I think you have to double down, and you have to take 2 dynamic wide receivers if you go that route, and then come back round 3, and then you get those middle tier backs that you're hoping hit. You're going to be able to come back around middle, in the 3rd round this year, and get your Joe Mixon. You're going to be able to get guys like that are going to be serviceable, and you hope that they hit. Josh Jacobs, another guy that's probably he might go in the 2nd round, but I think guys like Mixon, I don't think it's a stretch to say they're there. And while you were talking to Rocky about like that 6th pick, in my mind, I'm already looking at next year, and I know it's going to happen. We're going to get to pick 6, and you're going to have your choice is going to be CeeDee Lamb, Bijan Robinson. That's where you're going to be at pick 6, and it's really going to. You're going to have to decide then there, what is my draft strategy? Where do I want to go?
Yeah.
At that point, I probably do go Bijan there, only because the 2 big names at wide receiver, Jamar Chase and Jay Jettos, should be off the board.
Yeah.
And then you should have Jahmyr Gibbs should be off the board. Saquon Barkley should be off the board. And Bijan might be that 3rd back at 5 gone. But I will tell you that if I am sitting somewhere in that 3 to 5 range, and Jamar Chase is still sitting there when it gets to me, I'm going to have a very difficult time not selecting Jamar Chase.
So this is interesting because I think we just war gamed something and I figured it out as we did it, where if you take that wide receiver there, you almost have to double down on wide receiver just to make that a strength, right?
Yeah, to make you have to make it a strength.
I think the reverse, if you go Bijan there, I don't think you double down on running back.
No, you don't.
I think you got to come back and try to get the best receiver available.
There's only one way that I'm going that's a lie. There's 2 ways that I'm going running back. Mm-hmm. I'm either starting the draft, so I know that I'm not getting, if I start running back and then I decide on my 2-3 turn to go wide receiver, I'm getting absolute dog shit in round 4 for a running back.
Yeah.
So I am going running back, and somewhere in my next 2 picks at that turn going running back, or if I'm at the back end of the first round. So if I'm at the back end of the first round, and I see, so last year, back end of the first round, you saw Barkley, Kyron Williams, you saw that kind of tandem. You saw Barkley. Who was the other? There was somebody else that was going there too with Barkley, and it was fantastic. Early? No, at the end of the first round. And it was great.
I mean, some people had questions about Derek, but I think he was going more 6 to 8.
Yeah, Derek was going a little bit before that, but Barkley was sliding. People really questioned whether or not he had the juice in the tank to make it work in Philly, and egg on your face.
I don't think everybody foreseen them just kind of
force-feeding him.
Giving the keys to the offense to Saquon. Yeah, I thought he was going to be a complimentary piece for them. But
so this year, that back end turn is going to be a little bit more difficult. So like you just said, wargaming this, you're going to have to commit the wide receiver if you do pull the trigger in the back half of the first round.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to the next little point here, and I think this is important to press upon now. I think once you get past your first stable, that tier of wide receiver, like 1 through 5, your Lambs, depending on how you feel about Tyreek Hill, but whoever you have slotted in there in that first tier, I think then it gets a lot more interesting about, kind of strategies, and we are talking PPR. So the question I want to put out to you guys is like, once you get past those stud number 1 guys, and then maybe you got, like, Calvin Ridley's a good guy to point out here, just because he's a wide receiver 1, but he's not necessarily a guy that you have to have. But if I'm looking at him versus somebody else, am I looking for a PPR merchant, or am I looking for a big play receiver? Like, where do you place your value for essentially your wide receiver 2 to your high-end flex? Are you looking for the floor on like I'll throw out Wan'Dale Robinson. Let's say he goes to another team because that's the guy fresh on my mind. That's going to get like 9 targets, 10 targets a game, short yardage, but you have a floor, or you're looking for your big play guys that might boom or bust.
Where are we talking about in the draft again?
It's not. It's I guess,
probably rounds 2 or 3 is
right. Probably to maybe back end of 3 into 4. Like you're talking about wide receiver 2 to flex. So not your top of the rank guys where it's really like guys have weaknesses and strengths. What am I valuing more, the consistency or the big playability?
So my draft strategy is very consistent every year. My first 5 rounds I reserve for. That's my floor. They're my consistent guys. Round 6, I play a lot of dual flex leagues, right? So when I get to round 6, that's the guy that I might take a swing on somebody that I feel, right? Okay. So it might be what's going to be very interesting this next year. I don't have my gap between tiers with wide receiver is not as great as it used to be. This year will be the first year in my mind that we're seeing tier 1A. So there is a level in between 1 and 2 of wide receivers that should be taken ahead of 2. But the reason why they'd be 1A is because you have to really debate whether or not you want to go mid-round running backs versus these guys. And these are the guys these are the Marvin Harrisons, the Brian Thomas Juniors of the world. Mm-hmm. These guys that are going to be absolute target share monsters next year that are going to be able to produce. But do you really want to commit going round 3, round 4 with wide receiver and essentially doing you'd be going 0 running back theory at that point?
Let's take it out of round 3, round 4, because I think more of the question, you could jump in here if you want. But a comp I thought of while you were talking was, let's take a George Pickens, who I think if we get some more consistent quarterback play and just more consistent play in general, big play guy could win you a week versus going into next year, a guy like a Cooper Kupp. If Stafford comes back, is going to have the chemistry, he's going to be targeted, but not necessarily going to have those big games. Like if you're at that point in your draft and those 2 guys are on the board, which I think they might be around the same time.
They will be.
Which way do you go? What's your strategy there? Are you favoring the Kupp prototype or the Pickens prototype?
Yeah, no, I'm 100% favoring the Kupp, partly because in this example, I think George Pickens could be a head case. Mm-hmm. But I think he's going to
take that out. Yeah, take that out.
But I think even without that being thought about, I think he's going to get you as many games that he's like 8 to 12 points as he is going to get you games that are 15 to 20. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think Cooper, I like a guy, same thing as with the running back. We want a running back that gets 20 touches a game and maybe 5 or 6 targets. I like Cooper. I think most games he's going to get 8 to 12 easy targets. And I think especially with Cooper, he is somebody who could at any moment break it and actually score too.
I think I see where you're trending with this question, and I like your examples, but again, character flaws with George Pickens and Coop, I think was a touch off. So I think essentially what you're saying is, are you going to swing for those guys that really have to be in the conversation around this time? Mm-hmm. Jamison Williams, Darnell Mooney, guys that maybe won't get really heavy targets, but when they do, they are legitimate boom or bust.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I mean, at that point, when I'm down there in round 6, this is where I start to begin to swing for the fences.
So I got you.
Because I think as we get past that too, I think there's another, and it's funny because there's another tier of like, okay, these guys are going to be solid.
Yeah.
These are going to be the guys that are like the 8 to 12 point range.
You're totally on base, and that's kind of what I'm asking. Are you trying to build once you get past your core, are you looking to fill your roster out? Like, obviously, you're going to take swings. But what are you favoring? Am I favoring, like, the higher end of that guy that's going to be solid and the lower end of the home run, like the boom or bust? Or flipping it? Like, what do you value more?
I'll tell you what, championships aren't won when you don't try to hit and swing and hit. You have to get that guy, or in the case of Saquon Barkley this year, getting him at such a discounted rate at the back end of round 1, mm-hmm. front end of round 2, and then just having solid draft production after that. Mm-hmm. I mean, this year was a bit of an anomaly as far as that's concerned, right? Because you have a guy that should have been top 3 on talent alone right? With question marks. And he proved those people that held him in regard for top 3 to be the guy. So those people really capitalized this year. So championships aren't won unless you. I like to swing a little early. Like I said, round 6 is where I start swinging. Round 6 is where I will go out. I'll get Jamison Williams. Yeah. I will swing for a guy that I think just has absolute breakout potential. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of somebody who fit that mold last year for
Man, I
me.
think a good guy this year, probably going into next year, is going to be, you're going to disagree, but I think probably De'Ami Brown is a guy I would look at.
Yeah, no, I was high on De'Ami Brown when he was a rookie.
When he came out, and if you looked at his, he had like one of the highest catch to touchdown ratios of any receiver, even in his first 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. He just wasn't getting enough. But I think we saw at the end, Jaden had kind of discovered him. Yeah.
And he was super raw when he came out too. That was the big thing with De'Ami Brown. Let him marinate. You know, in the fantasy world, it's very easy to come off of those kinds of guys quickly, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like 2 weeks in, But I mean, even more so, like year 3, you're over them, right?
Oh yeah.
The Kyle Pitts experiment is over for, I will say, 95% of fantasy football America.
Yeah, I'm picking him up though.
Guess who? Guess who I'm getting as a discounted tight end 2 next year.
Well, and he's still
Kyle
a guy,
Pitts.
like talk about a guy that still has upside. But even his floor is not bad. Like people overstate.
How bad. I think the hype was so crazy for him.
Well, he is the only tight end ever to have 1 touchdown in his first year, 2, 3, 4. So funny. Like sometime around 2030, I'm picking this guy up.
We're trending in the right direction. All right. So the last question I'm going to ask you guys. This is more a broad question, but answer this however you want. How much focus do you guys put in the offseason? I know you. And I'm asking you, I'll put it out there for the viewers. These guys are both meticulous in their analysis. They jump through a lot of hoops to figure out who they want to take, where they want to take. So that's why I'm putting this out there. And I think it's something that all fantasy players should do, specifically if you're really trying to win and you want to have bragging rights or win that for whatever the case may be. But if I'm looking at it like a De'Ami Brown or a player getting drafted or whatever, are you looking at offensive coordinator? Are you going and looking back last year at plays ran per game? How much are you looking at game script? Because I think a big flaw with the Saquon Barkley outlook last year was you were looking at a team that was centered around Jalen Hurts and 2 wide receivers because they had lackluster production from a running back. I mean, Swift is a solid guy that has flash, bursts here and there. He's not Saquon. So it didn't make like Swift in that offense doesn't have the effect that Saquon does. Saquon comes in, he's a guy you've focused your offense around. That's hard to prognosticate.
Yeah.
But are you looking for that? Like, all right, this guy's coming into this system, this OC, this team likes to run this amount of pass plays per game. They're running 69 plays per game in offense. Are you baking that in? And how important do you think it is to bake that into wherever you're projecting?
This is my every year. If you're not taking notes throughout the year for the upcoming year, for the next year, then you're just doing this casually for fun, with friends in an office league.
You want to win those too. I think. I'm not meaning to cut you off. Because I don't want you to hear what Mark's saying and think that there's a barrier.
I'm not being an elitist. What
I'm saying is that you should take what we're saying and apply it. And don't tell your friends about it in your league and go win the league.
Yeah. And honestly, you should be taking all of that into account. The number one thing that I have on my list that I need to get better at is understanding the offensive coordinator's pull on the offense being ran. So something that I've just recently started taking into account is when these offensive coordinators bounce around. And the other very difficult thing to determine is the head coach above them, right? Mm-hmm. Are they a micromanager? Are they capping the calls and playing a lot on their own? Or are they giving free reign to an offensive coordinator? Yeah. So for me, that's always been very, very difficult to gauge. But what I do like to go off of is I think what happens is certain teams build their rosters around a core of play, around a nucleus of players that regardless of the revolving door at offensive coordinator. Their team is still built for a certain scheme. So I look at that. I look a lot at the numbers as far as pass plays versus run plays being ran. I think I printed out cheat sheets for us the last 2 years that vacated targets. That's another huge valuable statistic to use. Vacated targets in a system. So I mean, if you have two guys that are leaving that it's vacating 300 passes, they're not just not going to pass 300 times. They're going that void is going to be filled somewhere.
Yeah. I think Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I actually agree with what you're saying. I think you have to take all that into account. I don't know that I would add much to that, to be honest.
I think that I'll add a little bit to it. I do think it's important, like I said, to kind of dig into even further, like those game script numbers, because I think that is like the hidden thing in games. It goes beyond talent.
I think you're right.
Sometimes it's like you need to see what is the philosophy of this team. Like I think Buffalo is a good example too. They became much more of a running team this year. So what does that mean for Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir next year? If they keep Joe Brady on board, does that mean they're going to continue to run as much? Are they going to? Are you putting money or like, putting your whatever? Are you investing in Coleman this year, expecting him to break out in year 2, or are you thinking they're going to stay with the same rest? Because I think they should probably give James Cook the ball more, right? And what does that do for Coleman? So I think it's important to do that and really kind of get into the numbers. There's a lot of good resources out there for that where you could literally look at the amount of plays ran, the percentage of run to pass, play action. So when you get into Jameson Williams, how much play action are they doing in Detroit? Yeah. How often? How often was it successful? And then you can take that and extrapolate that. Maybe they'll try to do more of that next year. So there's a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of numbers to get into. And if you want to win, I think those are good things to look into.
And I think you hit the nail on the head last week, too. Speaking to that point, especially going zero running back theory this year, Ben Johnson going to Chicago is huge uptick for the proposed output for DeAndre Swift. Yeah. And you're going to get DeAndre Swift in the 6th and 7th round in drafts this year. I'm just telling you flat out. Unless you have some Chicago truthers in your draft, you're going to get DeAndre Swift majorly discounted, and DeAndre Swift is going to play a Jahmyr Gibbs-like role.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned him last week as an up-and-comer because of that. Like, I just think, honestly, Ben is a big deal for the majority of that.
I apologize.
Offense.
It was you that mentioned. I thought it was Phil.
No,
it was you.
But I agree with you, and I think to your point.
No, I agree with you.
Okay,
you're
great.
agreeing with me, agreeing with you.
I like it. Like Brady. Next year, did Brady run more this year because they bet on Keon Coleman, who didn't really perform, looked like a rookie, traded for Amari Cooper, who the Browns realized had nothing left.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't because their best receiver was
Khalil Shakir,
which is crazy to think about that. He's not a bad receiver. He's probably a really great 3 or a decent 2, but he shouldn't be headlining your team. No. So, year to year, you're having to take those things into effect. I think they're going to solve it. They're either going to trade or get a better wide receiver.
Yeah, they got to get him another wide receiver.
And I mean, they're clearly not going to probably renew Cooper.
And they need to lean into James Cook more for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to our next little section here. We're going to do a little fun exercise. It's way early, but it's always fun to do this. I think we'll start with you, and we'll go back and forth again. We're going to have these guys pick out 2 wide receivers that weren't wide receiver 1. So wide receiver 1 is a top 12 wide receiver in a 12-man league, essentially. 2 of those guys, 2 guys that didn't finish there last year that can move up and finish there this year. And then they're going to give us 1 guy that did that they believe can or will fall out of that top 12. All right, so Mark, we will start with you. Give me a wide receiver that will move into the ranks of wide receiver 1 this season.
So, at this time, I'm fanboying him at this point.
Oh, boy.
Garrett Wilson. I mean, he fell outside the top 12 in receivers, but God damn it, the guy he's a phenom. He is if he gets consistent quarterback play from anybody anybody that can play the position, even proposed first ballot Hall of Famers, if he can get somebody that can get him the damn rock, the guy is a top 5 wide receiver in this league. For him to finish outside the top 12 is just, it's a shame. It's an absolute shame. He undoubtedly should finish. I don't care what the Jets do. They're still not committed. They brought in a whole new regime. They said they're not committed to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think they should commit to Aaron Rodgers. Bring Aaron into camp. Let him mentor somebody else that comes in that's still got a little bit of juice that can play there. Bring Sam Darnold back to the Jets, because they're going to hand the keys over to J.J. McCarthy, I think, in Minnesota. But Garrett Wilson, if Garrett Wilson can get solid quarterback play from somebody, if a Kirk Cousins comes in there, you look at Garrett Wilson to rebound quite nicely. Again, coming out of my mouth, top 5 wide receiver.
Well, I think I agree with you. I'm going to say 2 things. I think that Sam Darnold does not want to come back to New York. I think Aaron Rodgers, I think they should commit to him for 1 year because they don't have a better choice. Go draft a guy like Joe Milton, let him sit there, learn for a year. I think we have to look at Aaron Rodgers and realize that he was coming off an Achilles even earlier in the year. He did get banged up in that Week 4 game, and he didn't look the same until like the last month of the season. They look good coming down the stretch. I think as long as Garrett Wilson wants to stay in New York, because there's been trade rumors
that he's asking to leave.
I think he'll be productive there with Aaron Rodgers, and I think he'll be productive anywhere he goes if there's a competent quarterback. So I think things are looking up for Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is I think he'll be competent, but I think I'm really curious to see what that wide receiver room looks like, because to me, if I'm Garrett, I might be demanding a trade, depending on the makeup of that room.
That's fair.
So,
all right, who you got, Rock?
So I'm gonna visit the windy shores of Chicago and
Chicago.
I got DJ Moore. He didn't have a bad year last year. His number of receptions 98, had under 1,000 yards though.
Not what we expected.
Yeah, and only 6 touchdowns. Finished at wide receiver 22, which is an absolute abomination. I think this is a guy that can easily jump up to 150 receptions, 1,200 yards, and probably 10 TDs. I think that at the very least, we're going to see a minimized, what's the fat receiver in Chicago? Remind me.
Keenan Allen?
Keenan Allen. I think we're going to see at least a minimized Keenan.
Keenan's probably out of town.
Yeah, I do think
he was a rental.
Adunzi is going to get better, but I think the whole offense is going to get better. I think that this is the year where they draft competent offensive linemen and probably get another one in free agency.
It's a good draft for offensive and defensive line.
He is, when I watch him run routes, there is no reason that he can't be a top 5 to 7 receiver. So that's who I've got. And I think because of the stink of Chicago, you probably can get him.
It's coming off the lake from Cleveland.
Well, I mean, whatever, but,
You're not from Chicago.
Yeah.
Don't matter.
You defend the city, right?
I'm defending the city.
All right, who's your second wide receiver that can move it up?
You sneaky prick. He was going to be the second one I highlighted.
Do you have somebody else?
I do.
That's why I took him first.
I do. Not to be undersold there. Ben Johnson coming to town too. Let's not forget that Amon-Ra finished as the wide receiver 5. That turns DJ Moore in the potential of being wide receiver 5. He's got every bit the same skill set as Amon-Ra,
yes.
but only stronger.
I honestly think he's actually faster.
Yes, and he's much stronger. He is fantastic after the catch. The guy is very, very tough to tackle. With that being said, all right, since you did that, obviously you were able to throw it to another guy that I was going to be remiss to not mention. That's Puka Nacua. So Puka finished on ESPN ranking the 27th overall wide receiver as far as yardage is concerned. Mind you, he did miss a couple of games. He only played in 11 games. If he plays a full slate of games next season, hands down should be taken in the first round of fantasy football drafts next year. We saw Cooper Kupp lost a step. Matthew Stafford still plays at a very elite level. Yeah. They still have a very powerful offense, and I always tell you, really watch what happens at the end of the season because it truly does transition into the beginning of the next season. And we saw the Rams finally start to get things together mid-season. That's why they were able to sneak into the playoffs. And Puka
win their division. Yeah.
Puka is the guy. Puka is who they're going to run the offense through. It's not Kyron Williams. They found that out, and they found that out in the playoffs that they're not going to run the ball through Kyron Williams because he's not going to win them a championship. Puka Nacua, my God, the guy catches absolutely everything, and he's a monster. He reminds me of a faster, stronger Hines Ward. He reminds me of just Mr. Reliable.
Yeah.
Always open, and you can get him the ball in the clutch.
Young Anquan Bolden, maybe?
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe a Santana Moss.
He's got
undersized.
a little undersized, but he's got a lot of those same qualities, though. A guy that you can just count on that's going to be open somewhere in the middle of the field.
That's right. I can't disagree with that. I do think, monitor the Matt Stafford situation because I think he drops off quite a bit if Stafford doesn't return. But who do you got next, Rock?
I have a guy that near and dear to my heart, but I think he showed us something last year. Only 25 years old, first round pick when he was drafted. And if you look at it, as Mark said, you want to look at how they finished the season almost as much as how the whole season went. In the first third of the season, and this is like going through week 7, he only had 21 receptions and he only had 200 and something yards and 1 touchdown. By the end of the year, he broke his record in number of receptions at 90, 1,229 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And he did it in the absolute dumpster fire of QB that was the Cleveland Browns, and that's Jerry Jeudy. I think this is a guy that is going to be around in week 2 or 3 because nobody really knows what's happening with their QB situation. But I'll be honest, I don't care. I don't care if it's Kirk Cousins. I don't care if it's Sam Darnold. I don't care if they go put a flyer out for Geno, which I'm hearing rumors about. I don't care if it's Cam Ward or Shador Samuels. It doesn't matter. It's going.
That'd be bold. Shador
Sanders. I think it does not matter. I think he is going to be better.
You out there, me out there.
And again, I think you can get him in round 3, maybe round 4. I see him as 1,358 touchdowns pretty easily if he gets competent play. You know what I loved about him is in Denver, they stretched him a lot more. They almost used him as that like prototypical X wide receiver. But in Cleveland,
they treated him like he couldn't catch in Denver.
Yeah. And then in Cleveland, he ran the slot. And my God, that guy got open, and he got open again with terrible quarterbacking.
I need the name of the leagues that you're in, sir. Because if he's going in round 3, I need to draft in every league that you're drafting in.
It's the sink of the Cleveland Browns, man.
Yeah. He is going to be very much available come round 7 and 8. So please don't jump for him because you're still going to get your guy.
Okay, even better.
A little bit later.
Even better.
All right, Mark. So now we're going to talk about one of our top 12 wide receivers. Why are you so close to me, man?
I'm reaching in my pocket for something. You know what I'm saying?
What are you reaching for? All right. We're one of our top 12 wide receivers that is going to drop out or has the potential to. I mean, depending on how much of your gusto you want to put on the table here.
All right, so not going off of fantasy football points, so I am going off of ESPN's yardage leaders. That's where I'm getting.
Is that what you're going off of?
Yeah.
Do you want me to look at actual rankings?
All right. So this is an easy one for me. If we're talking wide receivers that made the top 12 in fantasy points this year, there's one glaring name. It's getting very long in the tooth. This may have done it for him. Davante Adams finishing as a solid number 12 wide receiver in fantasy points. I think he is easily the one to drop off the list because honestly, this list is just crowded with names of young wide receivers with just a ton of talent. And talk about target whores next year. I mean, who are you going to drop? You going to drop Jackson Smith and Jigba off this list? No, you're not, man. He overtook DK Metcalf as the clear wide receiver 1 in that town.
And now there's talk of DK actually being traded.
Yeah, DK out of town. Cortland Sutton, we highlighted Bo Nix's chemistry with him. Maybe Cortland Sutton drops out. So I think Davante Adams, I think it's almost cheating being able to drop him outside of my top 12 here just because he did finish dead last, and I don't see it getting any better for him. I don't see it getting any easier. He's getting older. The dumpster fire that was the Jets. Garrett Wilson being what should be the focal point of that offense. I think Davante Adams is not going to repeat wide receiver 12 production.
I'm going to push back a little bit. I think that I feel like you're not discounting his season for the fact that he spent the first 6 weeks, 7 weeks in Vegas, which was like, talk about being in the middle of the desert. He comes to New York, he has to get acclimated, and still winds up finishing at wide receiver 12. I would say things are looking up.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I'm going to push back.
Oh, we're pushing.
I'm going to push back on you.
Oh,
because
he's pushing
Mark,
on me.
this was my guy too.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah.
I can't come up with another name, but
I can't.
I agree 100% with you. Here's the deal. He's 32. And last year, he was the lowest number of his targets in 5 years, lowest number of receptions in 6 years, lowest numbers of yards in 5 years, lowest number of touchdowns in
Yeah, but
4.
who was he playing with early in the season?
I disagree with you because he played for a bad franchise
Who's the
in
quarterback?
Vegas,
Yeah.
but he was the number one target there.
Yeah.
He was Gardner's guy.
Yeah, he
Yeah, I
was.
know, but we can't- guys.
But Gardner's. He was giving him targets left and right. I think Devontae. First of all, I think he's a malcontent. I think he's never happy anywhere he's at. Now he's talking about going back to Green Bay.
Should do it.
I think he's at the end of his rope.
Gardner, don't you disrespect that man's name. That is the future face of the Cleveland franchise.
Hey,
there,
you know what?
Gardner Minshew.
I would take Gardner. He throws less interceptions than Jameis.
Yeah.
He looks like a guy that would live in Cleveland.
Come on, he
in
would
my
be a
mind.
star. That
from
mustache
Cleveland.
alone. That mustache alone.
He's from Cleveland.
Is he really?
No, it's
Oh my God, that'd be so perfect. I'll take Gardner.
Homecoming.
I'll take Gardner. 100 out of 100. He can bring his van down, live by the river.
Hold up your Pabst Blue Ribbon. Here comes Gardner, guys.
So who else is on that list? Do you still have it or no?
Yeah, unfortunately.
No, there was no one like that I could see.
Garrett Wilson was actually 9th in fantasy points.
Run through them? Oh, wow.
The top 12 was Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra, Brian Thomas Jr. finishes number 4, Drake London, Malik Neighbors, Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, JSN, Cortland Sutton, Devontae Adams. Judy fell just outside at 13.
I think Cortland, it's possible.
It's possible.
And I think that, where was it? In the middle, you said somebody.
Well, you know what?
Piqued my interest.
It's definitely so. Let's
go
just
through 5
let's
through
just
8
say
again.
there's going to be 6 guys here that are definitely outside the top 12 because they're going to be supplanted by 6 guys that are just going to have ruthless seasons next
5
year.
through 8. Give me that again.
Drake London, Malik Neighbors, Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb.
I can see Drake London falling out.
So
I can see McLaurin falling out of the top 12.
I looked at Drake, honestly, and thought for a moment. But to be honest, he's another guy that really overperformed with the crap that he was dealing with.
Yeah.
I mean, Cousins was hit or miss this year. And Penix, when he got in there, was still trying to find his way, you know.
Here's what I just find interesting is that you guys were ready to say Garrett Wilson needs to get better quarterback play and he'll move up. But he had the quarterback play of Aaron Rodgers all season. And then Devontae Adams had it for half a season, and he finished at 12.
But you're forgetting
3 spots.
32.
Yeah, he was 32 this season.
Yeah. He's
He's
turning
gonna be
33.
I
33.
understand.
Season
He
starts.
still finished at wide receiver 12.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
not saying he's a
feels
scrub.
like a double standard.
No, I'm taking age into account there.
I get what you're saying, but
And
you're not taking into account
Well,
that he
I
played
can
with
tell you.
Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell for like 7 weeks.
First of all, God bless
and
those
Antonio
two.
Pierce.
God
All
bless
guys that
those
are-
two. Second, if I'm Garrett Wilson, if Devontae's in that clubhouse, I am asking for a trade. I'm sorry, because there were times last year where it was so clear that Rodgers was throwing the ball to Adams no matter what.
And also,
Oh,
we're
I don't know. When did that start? Week 9, 11 targets, 13 targets, 7 targets, 12 targets, 11 targets, 12 targets, 13 targets, 8 targets, 12 targets.
Yeah, so why do
he
you
was
think-
force feeding them the
Yeah,
ball?
there you go.
Yeah,
I think I'll
But they were
continue
playing
that.
from behind too.
That's true, but I mean, we are, saying the dumpster fire that was up there, which it was, but 2 top 12 wide receivers came out of that offense. So it's another lesson for you fantasy players out there. Just because the team is sucking doesn't mean you
they can't,
can't
yeah.
rack up the points with players on that team.
oh yeah, I mean
Yeah, I think that's something that
those guys. Who was the wide receiver a couple years ago that all of his points were? It was oh my god, was it Nico? It might have been Nico Collins. No, who was the pot
Tank
smoker?
Dell. Oh wait, hot
I mean,
smoker.
that's like 90% of
No,
the league.
no, the one in it was at the time. It was like a big deal. Oh my god.
Are you What team? You don't even know
for the
team?
Texans.
Pottsmore.
It was the year that Deshaun Watson went
he went
off.
The kid from Notre Dame, right? He went to Notre Dame. What's his name? That he broke his leg, right?
Oh my God, I can't.
He was a burner. What's his name? I can't remember his name.
I don't. The name
I'm gonna
Foster and
look it up.
Porter
No,
keeps jumping to my head. It's not like,
either one of those.
but it's he.
I'm gonna get it. It's Will something.
Yes.
Oh, Will. The guy got suspended twice.
Will Fuller.
Will Fuller.
Will Fuller. Yeah.
Will Fuller.
Yeah.
He had all those garbage time points. He would rack you up like
going nuts.
26
Yeah.
fantasy points a game because, and you know, the final 8 minutes they're playing from behind, and Deshaun's just throwing absolute, seeds downfield.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the show, guys. I forgot to get the Do You Remember Me pictures. Sorry about that. We will do You Remember again next week. That was fun. I'm going to try to make it a little more challenging this time because you guys.
I thought it was fairly challenging.
You guys
last
got
time.
the first one too quick for me, I think. So. The rest of them you did.
I will say, I definitely knew all the.
I did.
There was
not
one
know
that we
all
didn't.
of them.
No, we didn't know all of them. We got all of them.
Yeah, you got all of them, right?
Yeah.
No, you didn't get the last one.
Yeah, no, the last one is the one that we did get.
No, you
I
didn't.
thought it was somebody else, but then I thought it was Charlie Garner, but then I said, no, that's not.
No, you thought it was Garrison Hurst.
Garrison Hurst, yeah.
It was Ricky Waters.
Yeah.
What did I ended up saying Ricky
Kinda
Waters.
got it, yeah. All right, so that's the show. We'll see you next week. I think next week we're going to move on to tight ends, which should be interesting. I think there's a lot more room for maneuverability with the tight end position. So that should be fun. But subscribe, hit the notification bell. Let us know what you think about the episode, who you think is going to be in the top 12 wide receivers. Go follow us on socials at GOM Podcast on TikTok and on Instagram. We do go live during the season. We're going to try to get some stuff together in the offseason to go live for. At the very least, I'm hoping we can do the draft. If you guys would be interested in that,
Daytona 500.
let us know. We're not doing that. We love you.